Show starts in 1 minute. Good evening, folks, and a hearty welcome to our drive-in theater. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you, one that will provide several hours of pleasurable relaxation and diversion for you and your family.
Like 9 out of 10 film stars, Raquel Welch uses Lux Beauty Soap.
Well, no, I like to be a woman and a man to be a man, you know.
We hope you'll make this a weekly visit. You love the tasty array of snacks we have to offer. Bring your friends. There are always wonderful new pictures to see. We hope you have a wonderful time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Longhouse, the show for the sensible centrist. I'm not sure if I'm sticking with the NPR line. What do you think, Path?
NPR, no, we're the conservative revolution, aren't we?
Right.
That's
the show for the conservative renaissance, I guess.
Yeah, the new coming conservative renaissance. So you're not going to believe this one, folks, but even Bill Maher agrees that we should change our name to the conservative renaissance. And stick around for the end, because we got some advertisement for gold securities and our new book, 5 Ways to Escape the Longhouse. So stay tuned.
I see Charlemagne in the chat already, posting wood, probably in reference to the thumbnail of Sanna Marin. And Noitea is saying, "This isn't King of the Castle. I feel betrayed, literally crying and shaking right now. How could this happen? Why would my favorite Twitch streamer bring politics to my video games?" Yes, sometimes on this channel we do a little something different. That's the problem about doing multiple things. People end up liking the thing that isn't popular. Actually, you know what? Let me just have a YouTuber moment here, because today I got a comment on a video which is called "Of Work and Bugman," which is a video I made when well, it's a video essay I made from Dissident Nomad, who has been on the show. Said, "Great video, Walrus. You should make more of these." And I agree, I should make more of these. The problem is that no one watches them. I made a ton of these videos. In fact, you know, one of the best videos I made, in my opinion. Hang on. The Soundscape of Decline, The Politics of Telegraph Road, has like half the views, or like a quarter of the views of that video in question. And you know, if no one's going to watch it, I'm going to have to spend a week doing it. I can just, you know, I could just live stream instead, as Green River talked about last week. It's all about opportunity cost, right?
Yeah, the age of the YouTube video essay is over, basically. There's no, I don't think YouTube is even promoting these things right now, unless there's some like very specific algorithmic tweak that you've done to them. So I just don't think they were jiving with the algorithms, especially with doing both these streams and the videos at the same time.
Yeah, and that probably clashes with the algorithm. Like, YouTube really likes you doing like one thing. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about today. Today we're here to talk about Sanna Marin, Finland joining NATO, etc., etc. Finland recently had an election, which has shaken things up a little bit. And of course, we have our resident Finn, Birkarl. Welcome back.
Yes, hello. You also had a classic streamer moment there, where in the middle of introductions, you just rambled off into something else.
That's how it works.
That's exactly how it works around here, especially. Thank you.
All right, and we are joined by Liquid Swan as well.
Hey, how's it going?
We're doing well. You're hopefully have a lot to say about NATO, I understand.
A little bit, anyways.
Of course. And Carl Herman Habermas, also a veteran of this channel.
Hey, how you doing?
Sorry, you're a bit. Is it my audio or are you a bit too low?
Sorry, can you hear me properly?
I think it's better now. What do you guys think?
Yep.
Anyway, glad to be here.
Good. Well, Nordon, you say you watched them all, and that's why you're a mod, right? We reward loyalty. All right. So, where would you like to begin, Birkarl?
Well, I'd like to probably begin with the NATO thing, since that was has been going on for over a year since well, basically it started when Russia announced their special operation and the whole Ukraine thing got its dials put to 11, and the whole media landscape in Finland changed as regards the whole NATO issue. So, as a bit of background, I would have to reference the first Finland stream about a year ago on this channel, where I told about how basically the more left you go in any politics in Finland, the more pro-Russia you are. And the more right you go, the more anti-Russia you are. And being pro-NATO doesn't work like that left to right, but being pro or against Russia does. And with that caveat out of the way, we can return to modernity for now. So, about a year ago, the special whole Russia moved into Ukraine, and what basically happened in Finland, there was a huge shock, I guess. People were very much still in the old this post-Soviet mindset of the kind of Soviet boomer truth end of history, where war would literally never happen again. Whereas in the Western individualist boomer truth, war, was still occasionally necessary to, bring freedom around.
Sure, but that's like on the other side of the world, right?
Yeah. In the communist boomer truth, war was a thing that would literally never exist again at some point. And Finland very much actually lived it like this, basically from the 60s to the 90s. And this is basically the permutation of the mindset of people, basically up until 2022 when Russia moved in. Why join NATO? We're against this simply because war literally can't happen to us again.
Right. And so it was a bit of a wake-up call for like most Finns. Is that the best way to put it?
The normie boomer, yeah.
Okay, for the normies.
So
yeah.
I just wanted to hit out with this basic kind of mindset of how the average Finn being the boomer, because those are the big age categories, thinks around the issue, and why it was
of course a
so
lot of
anti-NATO
the people in
before.
government would be boomers as well, in persistence of power, right?
Well, actually, because everybody knows how the governments actually work with the Western alignment. I think the government has been for at least 20 or 30 years, or at least the nominally right-wing side has been pro-NATO, but just kept quiet about it and not pushed it at all, and actually in public been against it, but in reality for it, simply to gain votes, basically.
I see. So we have a bit of the same situation in Norway, actually, with EU membership. It's a politically dead issue, but it keeps being pushed by sort of the apparatus, right? Every couple of years, there's a push for EU membership.
That's exactly what NATO was. It was a thing that clearly the establishment in Finland too wanted, but they couldn't, get it through, and we'll just back off.
There's no political justification for it.
Yeah, and now when they get one, immediately it's right through. And that's the basic background with the NATO. But I guess there's a lot of individual a lot of details we can get into here. I don't know where people
Sure.
want to start.
Now, we can probably start. Should we start by? Well, we're already on the NATO thing, and if I recall correctly, today is the day that they're actually joining NATO officially.
No,
they have.
that
Oh,
the official ceremony for joining NATO was on Tuesday, the 4th of this month.
I thought that was just sort of like the intention to join. Maybe I'm
No,
misunderstanding.
the official ceremony in Brussels happened on the 4th.
Okay.
On Tuesday, and the last vote, which was Hungary, happened on Friday, the 31st of March.
Okay, well then I was misinformed. There was something with NATO and Finland today. Maybe I'm
probably some, formalizing some relationships, or
probably
how
something
things
else
work
that
from
they.
now on.
Yeah. So the report I'm getting is that today is the formal introduction as a NATO member. That's I'm reading that in a newspaper here. Maybe they're wrong.
Well, that's just some intra-NATO ceremonial,
probably
formality.
Yeah. Okay, whatever. It doesn't really matter how or when, because when the intention to join NATO is official, if I recall correctly here as well, it's already in effect. Like, say, if Russia had invaded between March and now,
the protection umbrella stepped into force when it passed to Finnish Parliament. Not just under a year ago. I think it was the 20th of May. I'm not completely sure, but somewhere around under a year ago.
Right. So the question, I suppose, is that we could go on to ask about Sweden being next, which they probably will be. But is there any commentary, Liquid Swan or Carl, you have on this? What the implications of this are?
Well, I went to Sweden this past summer, and I visited my second cousin there, and he was in. I guess in Sweden they have a mandatory military service, so every male, anyways, has been experienced with the military, and Sweden has had a pretty powerful military relative to their size for a really long time. I think he referred to the island of Gotland as the biggest aircraft carrier in the world. So if you talk to Swedes, from what I've experienced, is that they're like almost suicidally against Russia. Like, they hate Russia so much that like it's near suicidal, which is not a bad thing. That was like the first time I've ever seen a Swede like look spirited in the modern times. Anyways, you hear stories about the Vikings and all that, but that was interesting.
Yeah, and that's something to consider. I think I speak for everyone from the Nordics on the panels here when I say that none of us have any particular love for the Russians as much as we spend our time here berating the GAE, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's actually that's the sort of topic that I wanted to ask Birkarl about, because you talked about like the Finnish boomer left being implicitly or explicitly pro-Russian, but what's happened to that now? Is it just sort of universally
I didn't say
accepted
that they were pro-Russian necessarily?
Russia friendly?
No, I just said they were sort of in the Soviet boomer truth regime of forever pacifism, war never existing, because that's the PSYOP Soviets inducted.
Yeah, okay, then I misunderstood.
But generally, the left is more pro-Russia, but that's only the overtly political left. Most boomers that just vote Social Democrat, they're not really. They don't care one way or the other.
So there's no faction of the Finnish population who were sort of taking Russia's side on this, or we were trying to like some sort of Russia Finns or something. Who were trying to
it's a literal Russian population, which is a few percent. Those are just Russians, and besides that, I think at a maximum 1,000 people in the whole country that might be actually pro-Russian. If I had to, and that may be actually going a bit. Actually, there was a complete overtly tiny party in the elections that was overtly pro-Russian, and we could just look at their vote score to see. I would need to bring that up, but look that up right now. But let me actually do that.
Right. In the meantime, Nord Anon asked, what is the Finnish base policy, by the way? Are they letting permanent American bases on their soil? None of that has been decided yet. But I mean,
it's inevitable.
I think they would certainly enjoy that, but NATO or America might want to hold off on that, as it might be seen a bit too aggressive, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's pretty common. It's pretty common once you join NATO. Like even Canada, Canada has U.S. bases, but it's never ever talked about. They're just sort of up there in the north, and it's just never discussed. Because I think if it was sort of more open, people might start questioning it, and they can't have that. So,
and I think most NATO nations have some sort of U.S. presence.
So I have the pro-Russian parties complete vote count here. In the last election, it was 8,400 votes in the whole country, out of some 3.5 million people eligible to vote.
That's like the Communist Party in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the amount of people who are actually pro-Russian.
In that case, it's almost worse to have the party there because you're just nailing down the fact that nobody supports this. I mean, if you didn't have the party, you could at least, theorize or something that, there's a lot of
could be like
grassroots support,
but
but now we know.
There is a very since in the West, in the Western media, this whole infection of calling everyone who is supposedly right-wing pro-Russian has kind of started to trickle in here and used as rhetoric against the nominally nationalist party and generally just people who are not liberal, completely liberal with the liberal agenda, people who are against the regime's, the rainbow issues or anything else.
Yeah.
That rhetoric of calling those people pro-Russian has started to come in, but it's kind of ridiculous, and regular people are just confused. The Finnish NPCs don't take their updates very quickly. I mean, the cosmopolitan culture is very insulated from the rest of them, and they don't have much reach into. It's sort of separate.
And I mean, we could sort of sit here and pretend and say we're not pro-Russia. Nobody here is pro-Russia. But I mean, if you ask me, I'm just going to use myself here as a template. But if you'd ask me during the lockdowns or something in the middle of 2020, how I feel about Russia, I'd probably give you a quite positive view of it. It's only sort of started to sour for me probably the last year, or as this invasion has been going on, my kind of view of Russia has soured. And I mean, you might. I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody, but if you go look at some archives of Dissident Right content from 2019 or 2020, I think the views on Russia was generally quite positive in these circles. So I'm not going to. It's a little bit weird for me to say that. We've never. Sorry. Yeah.
I think that's to some extent legitimate. I think that's the problem. We live in a world now where you can't look at something in its entirety. You can't say, well, there are some things that Russia does that I wish that we would do, right? And there are others that I'm really glad that we don't. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. But I mean, even I was at the point, even days before the invasion happened, I was convinced that the whole thing was a psyop, right? I mean, they were never going to invade. And I mean, I had gotten that view from somewhere, right? Maybe that was naive looking back at it, but I really had swallowed that idea as well. That just like this friendly, cuddly Russian bear up there, that it's never going to do anything. And I mean, if you listen to you look at someone like Steve Turley, he keeps coming back up, but that's the impression that you're getting from at least that kind of the conservative Renaissance sphere of this culture.
I honestly didn't think they would do it either, but not for the reason that Russia is friendly, cuddly, or anything like that. I thought Russia wouldn't invade simply because I thought Putin was too much of a he's an intel spook. He's an ex-KGB agent. He's not a lion, is what I'm saying. He's not actually a lion like people think. And that's the main reason. But I guess he has more lion in him than I thought. So I was wrong. I was wrong. Maybe I guess we were all listening to AA or something on this.
Maybe.
But
I mean,
I just want to say I've never been pro-Russia in my life, simply for strictly ethnic reasons, and I make no apologies.
I mean, I might have a different perspective on that slightly, in that when the war started, I also couldn't believe it, but as people like Semyagog have been elaborating on the Promethean strategy, which we might get into, it's become clear I don't think it's necessarily that he is a lion, that he's just running out of time and running out of ability to do anything in the future that has maybe pressured him into this. But I am surprised by the lack of Russian support, in the sense that when I saw that it finally was actually going to happen, when I talked to people in this sphere, that is, it was as if something was finally standing up against the gay. And it's not like Russia is a perfect facsimile of what we might want to install, but it is something that is broadly nationalistic, moderately traditionalist. Well, that's me told. Go on then.
Well, the very fact that Russia is a gigantic multi-ethnic empire, just like the US, means that you can't hold it together with a message or ideology where you actually promote the main ethnicity. The only way to hold empires like this together is to actually turn against the main ethnicity.
Yes, I would agree with that in this.
Yeah, and there's actually a comical contrast where Putin held this speech about, how he is Mari, he is Chechen, he is Tuvan, he is Jewish, he is, this, that, or other ethnicity. And it was right next to Andrew Cuomo, who was saying, I am gay, I'm black, I'm Hispanic.
Yes, what I'm trying to...
same gay shit.
I mean, you could argue in the sense that when you decide to evolve from tribal and community ties into a sort of nationalistic entity, then you are going to end up destroying the smaller polities within your country. And this may involve eventually the biggest ethnicity of them all that it might purport to be working for and be a reflection of. France with the Occitanians, the Britons, the Normans, I think, was an example of this. Italy, when it turned fascist, people didn't think Italy as a project would survive because the people were so distanced. There's just such a disparity between them. They felt no allegiances. And these sorts of projects do work on breaking down what is already there in the sort of smaller localistic sense to replace it with a national identity. It's almost a project more so than it is a reflection of people. But nationalism, as far as it is useful, is more in line with what we might want for the moment. I'm not saying that it doesn't degrade and fall into entropy and these things come at the end of it, but it's against the gay. And that's why I was cheering for it personally.
Sure, they are against the Western elites. That's
so
for sure.
When these countries like Maloney's Italy pop up, which have the same standpoint in general terms, or the Finns party pop up, and there is an indication that they might succeed the current coalition when an election comes, these parties will be against Russia. Now, Russia might be another power that could bring them into and induct them into their sphere, but it's far less entropic when it comes to people's ethnicity than, say, Russia might have been. I mean, we've seen compare West Germany to East Germany to see whose culture was doing better by the end of it. So there is something to indicate a power dynamic going on when Maloney, despite all these policies that reflect a generally nationalistic outlook, aligns themselves with NATO policy. And I think that shows that the only reason these parties are permitted, it's almost a tactical ethnocentrism on behalf of the gay to sort of stoke up animosity between groups like Italy and potential adversaries like Russia, to allow people to finally express that sentiment like the Swedes are doing, where they're animated to go kill some Slavs or whatever.
Sure,
I think
but
that is
in the case of a place like Italy, that is very much, it's completely made up. What does the Italian have grievance against the Russian, really?
nothing more than they're a separate ethnicity and they may potentially.
Yeah, they live over there, way over there, and there's almost no historical grievances. I mean, the Russians did, put down some revolts in Hungary and stuff, and and they did march all the way to the Seine in France, even during the Napoleonic Wars. But the Russians never even walked through Italy. So,
sorry, if you permit me a distinction, then, because I think that's an important one to make. Then, when I mean tactical ethnocentrism, there might be multiple reasons to go for this tactic in a country. For example, perhaps you can mitigate the damage, even though the gay generally wants to homogenize. I mean, global American empire, global homo, that's the general trend, doesn't like to permit exceptions to this American vision. Why it would then facilitate or allow these things in the first place, like Maloney's Italy, would be to either mitigate damage, that being, perhaps you can bring in and induct these counter elites as much as they are, you could call them that, and make sure that they don't stray, essentially offer them things to make sure they don't stray from the important stuff like domestic foreign policy.
You have to realize that what we're up against here are foxes in this case, and any enemy is to them better controlled than deleted, right?
Exactly.
Or eliminated.
Yeah.
And the second distinction is, of course, when you employ tactical ethnocentrism in Ukraine, that is more so what you will be talking about in terms of there are grievances there, and you can ferment things like the Azov battalion and erode them later. And I wonder how many people actually in the Azov battalion, for example, might see the bigger picture of, well, what does the gay have planned in terms of quote unquote rebuilding my decimated country?
I happen to know that a lot of them do, and they plan a march on Kiev the moment the Russians are, the moment the shooting stops at the front, they're turning on Kiev. At least that's what they say.
Fucking base, bro.
But I don't think they will succeed, but that's what they say. But anyway, I guess my main point is that, granted, everything you've said is true, and the whole tactical letting people be nationalist and stuff is absolutely a factor. But I just think that, in the case of Italy, it doesn't make it's more a contemporary politic thing. But in the example of Finland, when there's literally several thousand years of warfare between Finnics and Slavs over the same area, this multi-thousand-year blood feud is probably more relevant than any contemporary political paradigm.
Right.
At least on an instinctual level.
Do we want to talk about the election, or should we, and then we can circle back to NATO stuff after? Or do we want to keep going down this rabbit hole?
Well, yeah, let's go to the voting. We got to get back on the Turley train. We're talking too much, serious, deep analysis. We got to talk about these sweet conservative trends.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to derail the discussion into too much of this who supports Russia stuff, but I mean, I agree with what Carl is saying here, that the gay is going to allow more concessions to these sort of populist leaders to keep people under control, but it does mean that they're sort of in decline. That's kind of the only reason that they would allow that stuff in the first place. But you're going to get to see, I mean, probably like you could elect Turley as like Prime Minister of Hungary or something. He would be like the perfect guy to just stand there and do these talking points and then implement gay shit on the back end. So we're looking forward to that. Some exciting new conservative trends. But yeah, the election.
Sorry, I am also wondering if perhaps in the case of, for example, I think Sweden would probably be the case of the most far right in both, in rhetoric of all the countries, especially in terms of deporting people. And I don't think this is a novel idea I'm throwing out there, but perhaps in the future we might actually see a preference towards ethno-nationalist parties to implement stuff the gay wants in terms of expanding their power. I mean, for example, in the UK at the moment, we have a case where the Tories, curiously, are advocating for universal basic income, and they seek to achieve this by national, what's it called?
So it's going to be Tony Blair policy via ethno-nationalism.
Well, yeah, it's the identity that will be digital ID. That's it. But the trap is that Labour is also suddenly flanking from the right in the Tony Blairist fashion you're talking about to say,
you know what I saw in the paper today? I saw, or was it yesterday? You sent me, Ludwig Path, a opinion piece from someone in the media talking about how our Labour, the Norwegian Labour Party, should look to the Tories in the UK as an example of a diverse party with a lot of minority representation.
Yeah, the headline was like, representation doesn't equal power, meaning that the past journalist was just making the case that the Norwegian Labour Party, okay, you have some minorities in representative positions, but they don't actually have deciding power in the party. So if you want to actually improve your party and give brown people more power, you should look to the Tories.
Yeah, because they put all the Indians in power.
I sent you that article and just a picture of my face, just like scowling. Like, oh, I hate these people so much. I can't even describe how much I hate them.
It's just brutal.
But yeah,
I am also curious.
Sorry, go on.
Just quickly, because I've been trying to think this up myself recently. What is the archetypal Turley take on NATO adding Finland to their collection? Like, how is this good for Russia? How does this mean a big win for Russia? Is there any way you could spin that?
The way Turley, I think, has spun it is that he thinks the left in Finland this is the basic American take. It all in all, they heard that the Finnish right won the election, so they think, those darn leftists who got them into NATO now lost. That means the Finns don't want NATO, and they're gonna join up with Putin, and we're gonna. This is the narrative on Gab going around.
The left in Finland has gone too far, and now the right is finally swinging back. Right, a new rising conservative wave, or whatever.
Yeah, that's just not how it goes. So if we're going to move on to the elections, the basic outline is that everybody knows who was in power. Sanna Marin and the Social Democrat Party was the
rest in peace, internet cat girl.
She actually wasn't voted as the prime minister in the last elections either. The dude who was leading the party and was the prime minister originally was a man named Antti Rinne, whose government basically fell after a the post office went on strike due to them I don't know. It's some completely fake crisis. It smelled pretty fake to me, and for the government to actually fall over that, the Post going on strike, it seemed very mild. And after that, a lot of the government that was a left-wing coalition, changed party leaders, and suddenly they were all women leaders, and we had the 5 female.
Oh yeah, I remember the photo shoots that sort of circled because they took a lot of photos of like, here's the all-female cabinet of Finland. Yeah.
They reformed the government with the same parties, the same coalition. The MPs didn't change because there was no election in the middle of the term there. But with the same parties, they reformed the government with new leadership for all the parties, and they were all female. And this is where Sanna Marin steps into the stage, and we talked about her background and everything before, so maybe people want to watch that separately.
We have a stream from like a week ago, a year ago about where we actually talk about all this stuff and go into detail about Finland's political history and situation. But this, I think, was the picture. This is one of the pictures that made it out.
Yeah. Yes.
So
And well, basically everyone. So in these elections, basically every one of these leftist parties lost, except the Social Democrats, who gained a few seats, which is Marin's party. The Greens lost, the Left Alliance lost, the Center Party, which was also with them, lost, and this was kind of seen as an election where the big parties ruled, meaning the National Coalition, the Finns, and the Social Democrats, and voters, because of the whole agitated geopolitical situation and rise in the cost of living, people really just wanted to vote for the prime minister and not, luxury idealistic vote or something. This is the basic narrative about the election that is generally accepted. And I think it's honestly pretty much true, since, people are scared and they just vote what has already existed. So the votes were concentrated into the three largest parties, but because people didn't like like the leftist government that was just these powerful females, the Social Democrats did end up gaining, but their whole coalition lost a huge number of seats, and the right wing National Coalition Party, which is the number one NATO shill party, won, and they have almost a fourth of the seats. And their leader, Petteri Orpo, is currently trying to form the government. He's likely going to form it with the Finns party. But the main problem with that is
Petteri Orpo is from sort of the, what would you call it, the liberal conservatives, the like right of center party, and he is going to most likely form it alongside whom?
Most likely, he's going to take the Finns party as the main other.
Who are the more slightly right-wing party?
Yeah, they're the nominally nationalist party.
Right.
And the Christian Democrats, who are a pretty small party but needed for getting a majority. And the problem that they're currently having, why the government hasn't been formed already, is because they also need the Swedish People's Party. And the nationalist Finns party and the Swedish People's Party, they don't get along because of the language issues.
There's too many N words in their party program.
It's the Swedish, the position of the Swedish language and its teaching in
the actual second language stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's mainly that, but the Swedish People's Party are also pretending to be, for all the refugees and doing everything. But in the end, that's the only real thing they care about. Actually, just keeping Swedish as the official language, official second language of the country, despite the future Prime Minister Petteri Orpo and the previous Prime Minister Sanna Marin, neither could actually answer interview questions in Swedish. But it's still somehow the official language of state when the prime minister can't, hold a conversation in it.
Right. So, who is this Petteri Orpo guy, and how do you think he will be compared to someone like Sanna Marin? From what I understand, he's from a much more of like a financial background, having held like financial ministry posts. Is that true?
Well, he's also a World Economic Forum young leader.
I was going to ask, is he affiliated with any like NGOs? But well, there it is.
Yeah, he has also been to the same schools, but yeah, he's got a degree in economics. He's done the whole rigmarole. He's your standard, pro business person if you just think in the U.S.
What I understand from a lot of sort of mainstream media, a lot of people seem to cite sort of a need for Finland to clean up its economy as the reason that he got such a strong vote.
Yeah, the main campaign theme for his party was basically balancing the budget, because Sanna Marin's party government.
The girl boss too close to the sun. Is that what you're saying?
The girl boss is spent extremely recklessly. Who would have thought? You've seen these videos getting out of having powder parties or whatever.
Well, there's a clip of that in our intro. So
Yeah, if that's not reckless spending, then I don't know what is.
And that was a quarter of the Finnish budget blown on her parties, right?
Yeah. Well, but I think the more interesting part of the whole election, rather than Orpo himself or the party, which you can just think of the Kokoomus, the National Coalition Party, as the Democrats, social liberals and everything. But a few people the more interesting thing is the type of people that actually got elected this time. I just posted the link there if you want to pull that up in the StreamYard chat.
Yep, I'm working on it. It's being a bit slow. Okay, here we go.
Yeah. So
share.
There's been a long tradition since the World Wars that basically Mannerheim was the last high brass military person who was actually involved in the civilian administration. But right now, we got two former, very highest ranking military officials elected into government. They're both from the National Coalition Party led by Petteri Orpo. General Lindbergh from the Air Force, he marketed himself as Charles Lindbergh to the United States in basically an attempt to ingratiate himself and Finland to the US to be able to get F-35s. And he basically succeeded. Oh. And after his military career and making sure Finland got the F-35s, he's now stepped down from that, and now he's in politics, which is a significant change in the culture, since military leaders haven't actually. There's been lower ranking officers that have been MPs before.
Do you think this is going to sort of accelerate the reinforcement against Russia? Is that the angle here?
Yeah, it's highly likely he's gonna get something like the. It's probable that he might get something like the foreign affairs minister slot or something like that. But the dude next to him, Pekka Toveri, is probably the prime candidate for defense minister, and he's the intelligence chief, the former of the Finnish Defense Forces. There's actually a third major military figure, Immonen, who was also elected from he was on the Finns party. He was in the National Coalition, but he was the leader of the Finnish Joint Task Force in Afghanistan. So, and there's a few more other officers.
But they are members of parliament. Are they supposed to hold any cabinet positions or any ministry positions?
Well, they're all in the Finns party and the National Coalition Party that are going to form the government. So it's highly likely that they're going to be ministers. And all MPs, basically, the way Finnish government works, you get a lot of the committee positions and everything. It's highly likely they're going to be extremely influential in these. Another person in the Finns party who was quite significant is a historian who got elected. He's by the name of Teemu Keskisarja, and he has long lectures on the Great Northern War and Finnish society generally in the 1700s. And he's basically kind of become, in the last few years, a celebrity touring historian. And
that's interesting.
And he got elected into parliament. And in a sane world, these are honestly the kind of people I want to lead my country.
Yeah, highly capable men who have proven themselves in their field, right?
Yeah, but the problem is, of course, the actual times we are living in and what potentially might happen.
You got like the monkey paw version of your wish there, Birkarl.
yeah. With the we've just joined NATO, and what they want to do with Russia, and it's not, yeah. But I guess that's the general outline of what kind of people we're in. So if people got any ideas, do let me know.
Well, there was a question real quick, and I know Carl Habermas had a comment as well. But before that, Nordanon says, I saw on Twitter that you have an explicitly fascist party in Finland, the ones with the blue ties. Where do they stand on this issue?
Oh yeah, the blue-black movement. Yeah, they. I guess you could also now say what is the absolute support for straightforward white nationalism in Finland. Straight up, 1488, and that got about 3,000 votes in the whole country. So that's your support there. But they were the UBI eco-fash party, basically.
Okay, and Carl, did you have any comment on this? Did we lose him?
Hello?
Hey, Carl. No.
You can hear me?
Yeah, there you are. Yeah.
I was just talking about the comment that Birkarl made, on these people being the people you would ideally want in charge of your country in a more saner time. And one of the aspects that is talked about when concerning the Promethean strategy and strategy over Europe for the gay in general is the center-right parties are the crux of it. They are the ones that are the moderates, the sensible, the people that allow you to express the sentiments you believe in without having to be branded extremist or any of the other buzzwords that are negative. And that generally is how they get away with most of their things, by espousing soft rhetoric and in deploying the things over time that the left will otherwise want. It's common knowledge now that you get essentially leftism at the speed limit with the centre right, and that's their purpose, to boil the frog. I would rather, to be honest, the incompetence, both because it's more explicit what is happening, and they're less competent at what they're doing. In a saner time, perhaps, but at this point, I think I couldn't imagine anyone I'd want in less.
Well, yeah, of course. I was just saying that these aren't the sort of people who define the moral framework or zeitgeist of the time. They're just the ones who run things and make sane decisions, if you get what I mean. So in the same time, this would be the goddamn ideal.
Yeah, if just sort of the messaging from the top was better, right?
Yeah, if the ideological, if the whole mind orientation of this, if we want to get all deep about it, if the whole spiritual orientation of the nation was healthy.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You wouldn't want Green River running the opposing parties, would be the essential the thing there, wouldn't it? You wouldn't want the competent people working for the other team.
That's the ideal, yeah. Now, you sent me a couple of articles as well. Do we want to go through them as well? Some of them seem a bit funny when I translated them to English, Birkarl.
Yeah, the translate from Finnish probably isn't that good, but
it's very hard for Google Translate to do it, so you're going to have to carry some of it.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to start with?
Just go through them in the order I sent them to you, if you want.
Oh man, I've already opened them, so I don't know what order that is. But let me check. Oh, you sent it to me. Okay, I have it here. So the first one is the video.
Yeah, the first one is the Zyskowicz. The attack on the election attack, the attack on democracy.
The attack on democracy that happened.
Yeah, so this is
mid-March or something. Oh, maybe it says here.
This is
March 25th.
This is during the campaign trail. So on the campaign trail, you can see there's a video here, but on the right, on the still here, the man with the glasses, he is Ben Zyskowicz, who is a long-standing National Coalition Party MP.
And for
He
those in the
is
chat, you don't even have to check. It's, yeah.
of Polish tribal extraction. I mean, and yeah, he's been a political fixture, one of the longest standing MPs in Finland, and on campaign he got attacked. If we might want to just watch the video here.
I'm going to play the video. Hopefully the sound will carry, but I don't think it's very important.
Yeah, you don't need the sound. And that's basically it. He's just been walked away now. But not a small man.
Was he attacking him with a sunny
He's a big guy. He's a big guy. I mean,
yeah,
if he wanted to,
and
could he dex this woman and sort of make a run for it?
Probably, but not when I tell you more about him. But basically, yeah. But Ben himself, Juskovic himself, is he's a 70-year-old man. So falling down like that, it is kind of dangerous. But anyway, this is the
dangerous, of course.
But this was talked about. This was the headline, case for the whole election, right up until election day, basically. This is the biggest election season. Big. What do you talk about them in the States? It's the October surprise or something like that. I don't know what the term is exactly.
October surprise.
Yeah, there's some term.
Yeah, the October surprise is the thing that might switch the rhetoric in the election campaign. Like, I think it was.
Oh yeah, right.
Grabbing by the Pussy was the last one in 2016.
Yeah. Like the big switching story. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, you can see that this it wasn't a planned attack. This this man basically
I posted it in the chat. That's a Fanta. This guy's a confirmed National Socialist.
Yeah, I think Birkarl. Everybody wonders what he has in his hand there. What is this soda brand?
It's probably one of the supermarket's own, and it's actually a light version since it's the light blue. Ooh. So it's a sugar-free, cheap knockoff brand Fanta.
He doesn't use it. He sort of just shoves him, of course. But as you said, he's an old man, so falling down like that could be dangerous.
Yeah, but if you scroll down and look at the pictures, I mean, they clearly, after he was pushed down, they basically told him to stay down. We're gonna take
they're
some
milking
pictures.
It a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. After he was pushed down, they probably told Ben, stay down. We're going to take pictures from every angle, and they held the whole.
I think you sent me a photo as well from the other angle while this photo is being taken. So
I think I put 2 photos from 2 different angles. They actually did take pictures from every angle of him on the ground like this. So they turned it into a photo op. I have no doubt that the attack was real, but the media initially, when Ben made the reported the crime, he reported that the attacker was screaming, "Fuck you, NATO imperialist, fuck off."
Right.
No, wait. I think it was "Fuck you, NATO imperialist, Jew." Go away, and more bad words, and these were the words that was used to attack him. But when the background of this guy was dug up, he was basically a Antifa leftist, because this is what Antifa leftists are like in Finland. I told everyone at the start of the stream. The more left
things
you
are
go,
a bit like weirdly inverted in Finland.
the more left you go, the more pro-Soviet Union, the more pro-Russia you are. So the previous leftist government actually stabbed their whole support base, at least the radical parts of it, in the back by joining NATO. The most fierce anti-NATO protests in Finland were done literally by, the Rojava protest people, who were, standing up for the Kurds and everything.
Yeah.
These are the most vocal anti-NATO people in Finland. the
I'm seeing
Rahava
Nietzsche's-
trannies, basically.
Nietzsche source in the chat saying the old Swedish left was like that. Yeah, and that's the same for Norway as well. You can still find sort of remnants, a couple of publications that inhabit sort of the old school hard left, and they are still pro-Russian.
Yeah, so this attacker was basically a guy living on benefits, using his benefits money to buy knockoff Fanta, and
Nice.
there's footage of him in a protest a few years before throwing rocks at a police horse and stuff like that, and he has previous convictions for drug use and all kinds of stuff like that.
So all in all, it sort of understandable, unfortunate outburst from a clearly disturbed individual. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, but this was probably another happening that why the National Coalition got such a large portion of the vote, because this did kind of define the election somewhat, or it was in the background of all the debates.
All right, so the next up was this one, or is it the other one?
Oh yeah, this yeah. So this column basically by Jari Tervo, who is a long-standing journalist. This
looks
basically
very Finnish, by the way.
This outlines the Finnish establishment line on the whole NATO question. The real analysis, as we just went out earlier in the stream, was that they wanted to do it for a long time and only now got the excuse to do so. But in this column, if you go through it, Jari Tervo here basically tries to talk himself into circles of saying, Marin and President Niinistö follow the people into NATO. They wanted it, actually. So this is the way that it's framed. This whole column.
This is what the people wanted.
Exactly, and
it's something that has been sort of part of the bureaucracy for quite a while, right?
Exactly, and it's only now that they can actually openly talk about it.
Yeah, this is a bit of an emergent behavior there, or should we say culture being downstream from law, I guess, or power.
Well, in a sense, you could say that they couldn't do it before, right? So they couldn't just do whatever.
Yeah, right.
But the direction, the ratchet was clear.
It kind of reminds me of the whole COVID nonsense, where they're like, oh, lock yourself in your house for grandma. It's like, okay, well, to kind of convince someone in the same manner to, I guess, suddenly hate Russia, which there's reasons to, but do you see some similarity there that maybe people have been primed?
Finn's the scars of the wars run pretty deep. People do actually hate Russia for a longer time. The problem is the journalist class really did. I mean, the political class, due to a tradition from the Cold War, were actually pretty Russia friendly. At least the left was, very openly so. For example, Alexander Stubb, who we've talked about before, he was one of the architects of Nord Stream. And a lot of leftists as well were served on Russian gas company boards and all kinds of stuff like this. So the political class is very divided into two over these kinds of issues.
Sort of it's
whereas
enough
the
time has
people
passed.
mainly either didn't care about Russia or had blood memories from the wars.
Right. Yeah.
Fair enough.
So basically, enough time passed and Finland's political class drifted far enough from Russia to allow this to happen.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people's reputations were blown away with that Nord Stream.
Exactly. Yeah, and then when the Ukraine thing happened, it all sort of blows up, right?
Yeah, you can't pretend to be a liberal anymore if you.
Yeah. And then we have some just some red meat here, I guess. Or this is a bit of a fun.
Some meme. This is some memes. So This is what happens when internet happens and the QAnon phenomenon hits the shores of the periphery of the empire. Basically, these three people were running for the Crystal Party, basically the Crystal Healing Party. Some people jokingly called it the Crystal Meth Party, but
I mean, looking at the guy all the way on the right there, I can see why.
But they're basically the party is basically completely pacifist, but actually NATO is imperialist, and we should just hug a Russian. #hug a Russian. And these people were deep into the most up-to-date QAnon saga, which is that the global pedophile cabal are hiding all the kids in tunnels globally around the world. And they're actually in a civil war. There's, a civil war within the in the globalist elite, and they're fighting over the kids trapped in these tunnels. And what this means is that these QAnon schizos from across the globe, including in Finland, these ones who have been now parliamentary candidates, they go around mapping every tunnel in every country, including ones that are relating to
restricted
military,
yeah,
into military and otherwise defense infrastructure.
And that landed
basically
them in
that means
trouble.
You get a treason charge because you're actually publishing classified information online about the defense forces, tunnel networks. so
well, what else were they putting those tunnels but kids, right?
Yeah, there's massive tunnels they're big enough to house missiles and tanks. That's perfect for children.
Exactly.
Yeah. QWERTY ZZ7 for about 5.5 Canadian dollars. Thank you so much. It means the world to us here at the Longhouse. I'm glad you decided to join the conservative renaissance and give us some of your money. Geostrategically, the US and Russia have the least to fight about. Do you think that may lead to an alliance in the future? What would the timeline be? That's a freaking weird question. I mean, not as long as Putin is the head of the state, and not as long as Russia has actual. It's like people are going to be like, oh, Russia and China aren't in an alliance, but in all ways except the words, it seems like they are. Even Stoltenberg said himself the other day.
Maybe you could clarify the question a little bit. I mean, what does it mean that they have the least to fight to bite? I'm not sure I understood it properly.
I think it's just a basic geopolitical analysis in that the U.S. and Russia really don't have any natural frontiers with each other, right? I mean,
Alaska.
Well, yeah, but that terrain is so hostile. I mean, you can't fight over that in any mass scale.
I don't think it's essential.
What about access to European resources?
Well, that's what you could fight over, but you don't need to directly fight that.
I mean,
So there's
America
no
is
reason
currently in a proxy war with Russia right now for European control, right?
Yeah.
I mean, forgive me for getting a little bit Spenglerian on this, but I do think that it's not necessarily that in some sort of free trade economy that Russia couldn't do well in it, and that they would be better served being a democracy in those terms and materially benefit from being in the bosom of the gay. But I do think that they have a different biospirit, and I mean that in the sense that they're not entirely European. And I can see how, when the Americans have said quite plainly, our interest is in you being a third-rate power, Russia out, Germany down, US dominates in Europe, because Europe in itself, once unified, under one banner, be it the Russians, which I wouldn't like necessarily, it would be a power to rival the US. So Russia has to be permanently on the periphery in that sense. I also think that Russia just won't stop. It's not these two forces, I think, are in spirit antithetical to each other, and both sides on some level do know this. So when it comes to the potential for Russia to go and essentially extend its influence, however hard it may take, or however little it might take spiritually on the rest of the population, that would be a more unified Europe, but beyond the EU, which is essentially a vassal state and a colony. So I think you would probably get a more authentic European nationalism under Russia than you would anything else, especially when it comes to, for example, Maloney. The Russian timeline equivalent of Maloney, I'd expect to be a lot more in line with the rhetoric, with their action, for example. So I don't, to summarize, I think that geostrategically, in the classical sense, maybe not, but in real spiritual terms, I think there's very much a perpetual war that will always go on between them.
No, I think the basic line that Americans or people of the New World, people in the New World are views that are generally more pro-Russian. I mean, I completely understand it, and I when he articulated best, I think I completely agreed with it immediately. Was when Mike from Imperium Press just said immediately that, you know, trying to make some universal principle out of this being, you know, pro or anti-Russian is completely stupid. You know, the geographical proximity of where you are and your historical relation to Russia defines if you're pro or against, and you know, that's it.
I was trying to look for something that I thought I retweeted, but I couldn't find it. So never mind. Well, I don't know. I don't see what configuration that would be, where an alliance between Russia and the US makes sense.
When there's a strong unified Europe that could oppose.
Yes, that would oppose both of them. But I mean,
Yes.
I mean, the road to that is so far.
It did a couple times.
Yeah. Okay. I will like to just get out of the way here that consistently throughout the stream, in the private chat box in StreamYard, every time there's been a woman on screen, Liquid Swan has been either rating the multiple women in order of would, or just saying would or would not.
I put or order of numbers, so you know. Obligatory.
It's very good. Very good. So anyway, these guys went looking for the kids in the tunnels, and they got smacked with treason charges. So
that
don't go hunting.
That proves it, man. That just proves it. That there are kids in the tunnels.
Yeah, why else wouldn't they want us in there taking photos and sharing it? Jesus Christ. You know,
Just makes
at
sense,
least it's just kind of sad, you know, when you hear about like some guy on like some video game forum sharing like Chinese plane blueprints that by accident aren't or are restricted because he's going to win an argument with some other autist. You know, at least you can sort of be like, yeah, but he was right though. He won the argument. But this is just kind of, yeah, we went into the secure tunnels and we have nothing to show for it really, and people think we're crazy.
I do wonder if this is like the Reichsburgers, where it's a party that's propped up by the media and perhaps these ideas implanted from above into a certain subset in order to make the idea as a whole of criticizing the.
It might be.
Well,
yeah.
Well, the party these people were running for is basically, as I said, the crystal healing yoga party.
And that's what makes me think, is this actually real? Do these people Is this organic? Is this what happens when the
imagine.
masses are left to their own devices?
I actually think these people are, there's bound to be a certain percentage of, pacifist hippies, and, these people, I think it's organic. Honestly, when you're in a country like Finland, I mean, AA said it best, I think, when on election day, Finland was, on his feed, and he just said, Finland, I'm sorry, you're just too small. You don't matter. And that's exactly how it should be. A place like this small shouldn't matter, but because of the whole NATO situation and everything, actually it does. And that puts us in the spotlight and makes some risky business and all of this. Crazy stuff might happen and things are relevant when it really shouldn't be. We have the possibility of, the benefit of being small is that nobody might even notice or bother you. I mean, that's the whole best thing about being a small nation.
One thing we look forward to, though, if everything goes to complete ass, is the Jolly Heretic doing streams after he's drafted. And hello, I'm
no
on the front lines.
I'm going to be on the front lines, but Edward Dutton is immediately going to defect to the Russians and become Dugin's top pal.
True.
Speaking of Jolly Heretic, I had forgotten, but we actually stream at the same time. So I'm going to put the link in the chat afterwards, because he's probably going to go longer than us. So everyone who's listening can hop over there and tell him that we're sorry that we stole multiple viewers from him. Single digits, probably.
all of 10 viewers we took from Ed.
Yeah.
Oh, well. I mean, following up on the Crystal Party point and the organicness of it, I mean, I've talked about this multiple times on various Longhouse streams, like this kind of natural alliance between the New Agers and the kind of dissident right sphere that's emerged. And this sort of just confirms that for me, that a lot of this sort of like QAnon stuff just spills over into these New Age environments almost seamlessly, especially after like the COVID lockdown stuff. So, I mean, I've talked to many of these people myself. They seem completely convinced of their own BS, and if they are being kind of, I mean, they might still be kind of useful idiots for the regime. so the only thing I want to retract is really like the idea that we're going to ally with these people. We are certainly not going to do.
As Simiagog said, you don't have to know that you're a Fed to be a Fed, and these people were basically the equivalent of Feds.
Well, me and Liquid Swan were just in private chat saying, would it be funny if a fourth parliamentary candidate went into the tunnels, came out with 10 missing children, and just refused to elaborate on it?
He never comments on it.
Yeah, just don't listen.
They take him into like, there's a whole trial and everything, and he just keeps shut. Charlemagne says Norway is superior to Finland. Excellent. 100% correct, and you're going to get mod in the chat for saying that.
This is mainly because their central bank treasury is about 10 times larger because of oil.
Oh yes, and very good mercantilism. So I think actually we've been going for about 1 hour and 15 minutes now. Do we have anything else we'd like to cover or say before we leave for the night?
Well, I think the most important question of the night is yet to be answered, and it is what happens to Sanna Marin now.
Well, she's going to go back to like just be like an MP, right?
Well, as of now, that is what it seems like, yes. And she's said as much publicly that, she's just going to be a regular MP now.
Or do you think she's going to turn like, she's going to be an influencer or something?
No, kind of. Basically, what I think is going to happen is she's basically admitted election defeat because the left lost, even though her party gained a bit.
Right.
So she stepped down from party leadership and...
Imagine the power she would command if she did a heel turn and became like right wing.
Oh, God.
It is impossible for her to be right wing.
Well, my personal opinion on the matter is that she may have resigned from the party, but based on her track record, that just means she's going to party harder. And I look forward to the
True.
weeks.
She has more time to party now. That is true. And that is actually part of what I think she's going to do. But she's going to be doing it in Brussels. She's going to get some place in the EU or something like that. And the international audience is going to get more of her. But we in Finland are going to be rid of her. That's my official prediction.
Well, she's over 25 now. Kick her to the curb.
Do you think she'll be... Sorry. Like, I have a prediction here. I reckon she's gonna own the fact that she's known as the party girl, and I think sooner or later we're gonna see a trend of new e-girl MPs that are gonna.
Definitely. She's like the first of many. Yeah.
Oh, basically have e-boy MPs now. I think I mentioned this during election.
Oh yeah, you told me about this. Yeah.
In the Finns party, there's basically two, university student dudes. You basically look like twinks, and they had a zero campaign budget, and all they did was do TikTok. They're basically TikTok stars that got elected into parliament.
It's Justin Trudeau.
They're like under 30-year-old twinks.
It's over. Current year plus 8 is commenced.
When is it collapsing, by the way? Wasn't the Kali Yuga supposed to come in about 2030? God, that's ages away. Oh, the end of the Kali Yuga, sorry.
The end of the Kali Yuga? I thought that was like thousands of years.
No, bro,
6,000 years.
Someone figured it out because, according to Avola, we have been... Did Birkarl leave? Oh.
I think he is saying that he has some issues with his peripherals in my screen. So he got booted out.
Just while he comes back and then we finish off, the Kali Yuga, according to Avola, has been going on since essentially all of recorded history. That means before the Romans, before the Egyptians. I think the earliest is that civilization long lost on Cyprus, and a couple of scholars who are proficient in Avola.
4,000 BC, just about thereabout, was the start of the Kali Yuga, and about like 400,000 years ago.
No, it's only cycles of about 4,000 years apparently. Some
4,000. Okay, I remember.
AA said this. He calculated it, and not AA, the scholar, and he said 2030. That's the year. So maybe.
That's a wonderful segue. That's a wonderful segue into what we are going to be talking about.
From me. This is my
Wait, Bill.
Now I don't have an excuse.
Sharpen the sticks. It's coming.
No, that's a wonderful segue to our next week's episode, where we are going to be talking about the book "Surviving the Future" by economist David Fleming, who was one of the sort of OG green guys, not in the way we think of it now, but in a lot of his work was basically on the assumption that neoliberalism as we know it now, he didn't call it that, but would eventually end one way or another, and it would be economically destructive, or it would be environmentally destructive, to the point where society would have to sort of reconfigure itself back to localism. So a lot of his stuff is very interesting to read because his starting point is very different from mine, but he ends up saying a lot where I'm like, wait, that's what I like. And
that kind of sounds like the start point of ecology as a field was started with the conservative revolution in Germany in the 1800s. So that's where the field of ecology started in the first place. This is the inspiration that people like Linkola took, for example.
Yeah.
So that might sound like the tradition he might be coming from.
He's probably coming from that tradition, yeah. But he ends up very differently from someone like Linkola, who basically just goes into full sort of defeatist mode about it. Fleming instead he basically has an entire book trying to outline a positive vision of what that might look like. So it's very interesting reading, actually. All right. Anything else, or should we get out of here?
Shield Praxarchy.
Shield Praxarchy. Yep. Very good. Ludwig Path, why don't you tell everyone what to go read?
Well, they just did. Just go read praxarchy.com, please.
Is there any upcoming articles that are interesting? Or
I have just
Well,
written a new article called Holy Mountains and the American Disease. Read it now at praxarchy.com. It's about holy
Very good.
mountains.
And the American
All right,
disease.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah, I absolutely recommend it. We got a new article coming out tomorrow as well. I'm not going to reveal too much, but yeah, we have a
Just
have a
keep it
sort
in
of
your
backlog of
bookmarks,
things.
folks,
Yeah.
and check out Praxarchy a couple of times a week. They post a lot of stuff. Very good stuff.
That's
Liquid Swan.
praxarchy.com. Oh, yeah, I have an article.
Praxarchy.com.
I have an article that just came out, I think, yesterday. The Day of the Pillow.
Yes, Day of the Pillow. It's pretty good reading.
Oh yes,
It's,
I haven't read that yet.
so
I
far.
have it. I have it saved in my to read list. Birkarl, anything you would like to shill?
Sille mie väli, sille mie väli, sille mie väli, ryssäju.
All right, very good. As for me, of course, if you made it this far and you aren't subscribed, why are you not? Hit the subscribe button, press like, remember to comment. I posted the link to Ed Dutton's stream in the show, in the live chat. Go check that out if you want to hang out on YouTube a bit more. Carl, you had one more thing.
Yes, I forgot. I also have a Substack that's in the nascent stages called Embers from the Ashes. It mainly consists of Praxarchy work that was rejected for being either too long and academic or too retarded, but it's also got some pretty good stuff on there as well. So check that out, please.
Very good. Also, of course, we have the Element Matrix channel in the description down below if you want to hang out and chat with people who appear on the show or other people. The sort of community there has got a lot of people who just hang out and chat and share articles and talk. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good weekend.